So we're joined from Pike County by the Honorable Shequeena McKenzie, owner of McKenzie Law Firm and city judge for the city of Magnolia and the city of Macomb. We thank you so much for joining us today. I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson. This is for our business law class, and we're recording this for all of our friends in Madison County schools, Madison Central, Germantown High School, Ridgeland High School, my good friend April Majors over there, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for fitting us in your tight schedule to talk about your incredible legal career.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I'm so happy that we finally got an opportunity to get this on the books. I'm excited.
Awesome. Now, obviously, we want to talk about what you do in the court system, all the different careers in the court system, the different types of legal things. But just give us a little background. You're from Pike County, went to South Pike High School,
Mhm.
went to Southern Miss, and then went to MC Law here in Jackson. So take us through that process and how those experiences help build being an effective attorney.
Absolutely. So while at South Pike, I had a unique experience. My dad at some point was my principal and my mom was my teacher. So I've always, I know, right? How fun. So education has been embedded in me. It was always important. I was always taught to strive, very hard and try and give everything my best. I've also always been on a pedestal for that reason. So, I've always had standards. I've always had morals, and I say that because it shaped me to be who I am today. So from South Pike, I went and took those same qualities, and I went to USM, and I did everything straight through. I never took a year off, semester off, nothing like that. So I went to USM, and I pledged a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha. So I have lovely, great, sisters and all of that. So my experience at USM was amazing. I majored in political science and I had a minor in human rights. I really enjoyed my human rights minor, so it got me in touch with, my care and concern for people, for the community, for the problems that we have in today's society. So I really enjoyed my time at USM. I got some great exposure, very good writing experience, all of the above. So from there, it's always been law. I was never really in between, and I say that, but when I was at USM, I used to tell my professors, well, I only had two passions. One was being a model, and the other was going to law school. Well, people may wouldn't even mention that in college to their professor, but I did. And they thought it was very unique because it's two totally different spectrums. So I remember my senior year at USM, I'm walking and I'm like, what am I going to do in my life? I literally had two things that I was interested in. And so I tell people all the time, I decided to go with the practical approach, and I went on ahead and said, I'm going to go to law school. But just like anything and anybody, fear creeps in, you get scared. Something that is unfamiliar and uncommon, it has no choice but to be scary when you can't control every outcome and you're deciding, I'm going to put my all into this and I have no idea if it will work out or when it will work out. So I was the very first person in my family to go to law school. I was the very first person to finish law school, pass the bar exam, and become a lawyer. And that was the dream. So once I did that, I was satisfied. I did everything that I set out to do. I went to law school, I passed, and I am a lawyer. From there, I never dreamed of becoming a judge. That was not on my bingo card. It wasn't on my to-do list, none of the above. But it happened. And just like, everything that we do in life, when you get those opportunities, you get those chances, you have to be ready and you have to be willing to step up to the plate and do what is needed to be done. So that's why I said at the beginning that education was embedded in me. Um, my father, he was a pastor, a principal. My mom was a teacher. So I had all of these expectations at a very young age. So becoming a judge at a young age that wasn't surprising to me. That wasn't by chance to me because my walk in life lined me up for that very purpose. So, I always tell people I wasn't, and it's not to say you can't have fun, but you have to carry yourself in a certain light because those people that sought after me to become a judge, I didn't know them and they didn't know me. They only knew what I exposed to people that were
There you
around me.
go.
So social media, that's important. The way you carry yourself, that's important. The way people see you and the impressions that you make, that's important. And it does not start overnight. It starts in high school, it starts in college, it starts in your higher education. And you take that through, and you'll get calls and chances and opportunities, and you'll be ready for them. So I know I said a lot, but that's pretty much my background. That's how I became a judge and where I am today. From there, I did open up my own law practice, and kind of the same story. Never planned on opening my own law practice. I never wanted to be a business owner. I just wanted to serve the people. But that's where my life led me and moved me. I had people who said, I don't care where you work, I want you to work on my case. And once you build that rapport with people, again, you have to step up to the plate and you have to be ready and you have to meet those needs and expectations. So I'm excited about my career. I'm excited about where it landed. But I say that I didn't plan for certain things, but I did position myself for these things.
That's awesome. And one thing I think is always a big misconception is when people hear lawyer, they hear judge, or even when people say they want to go to law school. I've even had people on this same platform say I would watch Law and Order and I just imagine myself nailing somebody on the witness stand and making sure they went to prison forever. And then I went to law school and I'm like, yeah, that never happens. And even you, as somebody that is in the courtroom
Yeah.
on a regular basis, very, very rarely is it happening like that? And we'll talk about the differences in the courts in a second. In your cases, you're really not throwing people in jail for the most part. And then people need to understand that there's so many ways and so many different areas. Because just because you're going and talking to an attorney doesn't mean you got to worry about getting the handcuffs slapped on you. There are so many things in your life every day that need
Right.
an attorney to look at something, to look at contracts, to look at paperwork, especially, and I know you see it in the civil court, making sure your family stuff is all together. So many things could be
Mhm.
avoided if things were had an attorney consultant at the beginning.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's very important. I, I get a lot of calls, like you said, about, hey, can you look over this and do all of that? And I do, and it's exposure. I can identify whether or not you're being exposed to certain liabilities and certain issues. And I can let you know that beforehand, before it's too late, before something happens and you're not covered and protected. Even right now, majority of my practice is car accidents. A lot of times people don't think, that's something serious, but it is. You're injured and you deserve just compensation and you deserve someone that knows the law, can apply the law. But as you just said, a lot of it is not beating, beating, beating. A lot of it is having a good personality and relationship. I get things done, and I don't have to be the meanest person in order to do that. It's the fact that I can relate to these adjusters. I can get it resolved very quickly and very effectively because I'm able to talk to people. And that's important. It's not a matter of, oh, you can holler, you can argue, you can fuss. A lot of times people get it really confused. They say, oh, you like to argue. You can go to law school, you can be a lawyer. Yeah, at some point you may need that, but on an every day to day basis, you really need to know how to hone in on your negotiation skills. And that comes from being a people's person. That comes from being easy to relate to and talk with and just get people to understand your position without them being offended. So that's a huge quality and it's a huge misconception as well.
Absolutely. And now, when we talk about the court system, We obviously know the judge, which is a lot of either the appointed or elected position in the government. But there's a lot of people that work at a courthouse, and we need people to think about getting into these careers. We need court clerks, we need court administrators, we need court reporters desperately right now. And then to plug my friend Miss Majors, these attorneys need skilled paralegals. So it's not just having to spend all this time and money going
Mhm.
to law school. You can work in this field and really help people and make a good living for yourself.
Absolutely. You will hear lawyers say all the time, I'm nothing without my paralegal. That's just not a saying. That's the truth. I can only be as great by myself, but when I have my team with me, I mean, we get things done. So you're absolutely correct. Paralegals, every position is extremely important. Right now, I have amazing clerks at the courts, and I tell people, hey, I don't do their job. I actually do not know their jobs. I know my job, but some of them know my job and their job, and they're able to help court run very smoothly. Because if I'm making a ruling, it has to go down the chain and get conveyed, as the proper ruling. And everything that's done after that, it doesn't take place by the judge. It takes place by the clerk. So they're vital. They're vital to the legal career. So you're right. It's a lot of different ways, and they're great careers. There is a misconception also that, lawyers, and if you work at a law firm, you work all the time. That's not really true. I mean, some maybe so. Certain cases, yeah, you may have to put in additional time, but typically they're family friendly, So you're able to grow a family and have a normal life, with good benefits and time off and things of that sort. So they're great careers within the legal profession.
Big time. Now, obviously, you made national headlines when you were appointed the city judge of Macomb and then later Magnolia. But like we said, there's different things that happen in court. And I know our friend Tiffany Grove always has the funniest way to explain it because she's up here in Hinds County. And she said, look, I've been a judge and an attorney for 20 years, and I've never put anybody in jail. I'm settling disputes. I'm doing adoptions. I'm handling divorces. And I know you do some misdemeanor stuff uh, in your role as a judge, but there's a lot of things that you may have to go to court for, and you need to understand what the process is, and it could be something that actually winds up really helping you.
Absolutely. Yeah, in my court, I'm not, and I get this question, and it's not, you know, on podcasts and things of that sort. It's just randomly at the store. And it's like, hey, um, are you throwing the book at people? Are you a mean judge, a tough judge? And I don't really like to align with any of that. I like to feel that I'm a fair judge. I like to feel that when people come into the courtroom, that I'm looking at the facts and the evidence, not at the circumstances surrounding everything. So I typically tend to not watch the news. And I mean, hey, that's probably not great, but I'm very unbiased because I tend to not watch the news. So when I get into court, I only know what is presented before me. And I actually started practicing that when I became appointed to be a judge. And it helps because I really do not know my cases when I walk in. When I walk in, if it's not brought into evidence properly, I don't have it before me, and I don't have the pressure of, oh, this is a high profile. As far as I know, every case that's in my courtroom is a high profile case, because that's how much I know about it. But yeah, I just try to be fair and impartial. I don't really look at the other things.
Yeah, and it's like you said, in your particular courtroom, you're not dealing with the murderers and the rapists and all the violent crime that we unfortunately see. And I know Pike County, unfortunately, has had some very violent incidents lately. So thankfully, you're not the one having to deal with that. You may be on the in court as an attorney on that, but you would not be the one presiding over those trials, at least not right now.
Yeah, so I don't have to preside over the trials. I usually see them first, though. They
Okay.
come to me for their preliminary hearing, and then I can either, set their bond or have a bond hearing or something of that sort. So unfortunately, I do see a lot of those, you know, um, defendants, but I don't have to sentence them for the actual crime that they're proceeded on because I see them at the beginning stage. And so at that point, at their preliminary hearing, I either bound the case over to the grand jury or it's dismissed, but I don't have to, proceed with all of the heavy, heavy portions of the trials.
Yeah, and they're really it really is, and we don't have time to get into all of that, but it really is a very meticulous process. And like you said, things have to be done the right way. Things have to be done legally to protect everybody. Obviously, the defendant's going to have rights, but the victim or the plaintiff also has rights as well. So you got to make sure everybody has their day and everybody has a fair shot.
Absolutely. Yeah. There
Uh,
I like to conduct court with order for that reason.
Awesome. Well, I do have a few questions here. I'll get to as many of these as I can. I like this first one. This is Derek Dozier, one of our football and baseball players here at Velma Jackson. And he asked, if somebody wanted to pursue a career in law, what advice would you give them?
My advice would be to expose yourself to a lot of research and a lot of writing. They typically tell you you can major in anything when you go to college. And I think that is true. Long as what you're majoring in exposes you to research and writing. With political science, I very rarely, at my time, had to do any type of test. We had to do research papers and things of that sort. And I would say that was the biggest asset when I went to law school, was that when they said you have to write a 20-page paper, I wasn't afraid of that. I was used to that. That was my normal midterm and my normal final. So again, if you're interested in law school, of course you do have to go get your undergrad degree. And once you get that, I would say consider any any major that will expose you to research and writing, and you'll be prepared, overly prepared for law school.
Big time. I like this one. This is Derek Mitchell. He's in 11th grade, part of our drum line here at Velma Jackson. And he asked, through law school and your legal career, have you ever felt imposter syndrome or any doubts that you belonged?
This is a good question. I don't think I have. Only because I've always been a very confident person. I've always given my best and given my all. Whether I win or lose, it's just something about knowing that I did my best that always comforted me in everything. So that gave me confidence as well in doing my best. So I said that because once you go to law school, once you graduate law school, once you sit for the bar exam and you pass the bar exam, you're a lawyer, just like any other lawyer. You belong in any room that lawyers are in. So I've always felt that. Now, have I felt like I've, experienced certain discrimination and things of that sort? Absolutely. But I didn't take it personal because I always told myself and I always knew that I belonged. I did everything everybody else did. And I never felt like, anybody was better than me or they belonged a little bit more than me because I knew what I went through and I knew that I did my best. And once you do what you can do and control what you can control, it's just a shifting of the mindset.
Love it. Now, I love this question. This is Cameron Job. He's in 10th grade, one of our football players and on our track team here at Velma Jackson. And he asked, is it hard switching roles when you're a judge one day and an attorney the next?
No, it's not. I love both. I really don't. I can't choose one over the other. It's just an exciting thing about going to court and fighting for your client. It's an exciting thing about preparing for court, preparing your arguments, and being able to use all of your knowledge and everything that you know. But being a judge does equip me because I think about cases differently. I think about, if I were the judge, what would I want to hear? What would help me make the best decision and find for my client? So I use that as a benefit. I use that to say that it's sort of an advantage, so to speak, because I'm able to use both avenues for the benefit of my client. Now, when I'm a judge, I like to think, I tell people, is not it's not easy. The work is hard, but I have to obviously prepare for court more as an attorney. So when I get to be a judge, I'm kind of like, oh, I can breathe a little bit. People are bringing things to me. I can ask questions. I don't have to know every single answer. They have to be able to respond to me. So it's almost like, oh, okay, this is kind of a little step back from practicing law, and it's a different aspect, and I'm in a different role. So, yeah, it's not really difficult switching gears, but I like to use it to my advantage and just kind of use it as a breather, so to speak. And I enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, it's like you get to go from being the coach to being the referee. So you're in the same game, you just have a different role.
Right, right. Yeah, it's great.
I got one more. This is Braylon Carter. He's in 11th grade, and he asked, "Did you have any hesitation when they appointed you to be a judge?"
That's a great question. And ironically or not, I did. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I'll just be honest. I had to make a couple phone calls to my mentors, to my parents, to my husband, and figure out, do I want to accept this role? I knew that it was going to be a huge task. I knew that it was going to be something that was challenging in a sense of, everything that I was already doing. So it's something different. I had someone to tell me and share with me that you're you will have people that will be happy for you, but you will also have some people that will say, what, and that's anything that anybody does. You're gonna always have those people. So what I didn't know was that I was making history in that moment. That I didn't know. That they didn't tell me. I found that out on social media with the rest of the world. So I wasn't exactly prepared for the actual, I guess, outburst nationwide attention that I received. I wasn't prepared for that. And if I'm being honest, initially it scared me.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I'm a private person. I don't want all these people looking at me and, all of that. But I did have to reflect back on my upbringing. I had to reflect back on being the preacher's kid. I had to reflect back on being the principal's daughter and the teacher's child. And I said, I was built for this. I was built for this seat. And I can do this and it's okay. So it took me a minute. I think I declined like every interview that was asked of me the first couple months. And then eventually I was like, okay, this is fine. And I deserve to share with the world my experience, and that was a very unique thing. But I did have reservations at first. Looking back, I'm extremely happy that I went and took that leap and I said, I'm called for this. And I really do feel like I am. My very first day when I sat on the bench, it just felt right. It felt like I belonged and it felt like I made a really good decision. So at this point, I think it's been about 6, 7 years since I've been appointed. So it
Wow.
continuously circulates, and it makes it feel like, oh, okay, she just became a judge. But I haven't. But I am recognized, if I go to the restaurant, or I went to purchase a vehicle shortly after, and the lady was like, "Oh, you're such and such," and I don't have those issues of people catching me off guard, because again, I've always carried myself in a certain way. So I had to talk myself into all of that. I had to remind myself of all of these things and let myself know that it's okay. And like the other question said about the imposter syndrome, that could have easily crept in when I got the call, and I could have, self-sabotaged everything myself. But I was able to call on my mentors. So whenever you get certain opportunities, just make sure you have someone in your corner that would be able to talk these things through with you. Because if that wouldn't have happened, I can guarantee you I wouldn't have my own law practice. I wouldn't have, the practice that I have today without having that experience, exposure, that built-in credibility, all of the above.
Awesome. Well, we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us. But a couple of things before we go. First of all, with every county courthouse, whether it's the Chancery Court, the Circuit Court, the City Court, all of those things are affected by elections. Whether it's a judge that is elected by the
Mhm.
people, or it is a judge that is appointed by the clerk or the county supervisors. Every place is different. But at the end of the day, who's making the decisions in those courts is directly affected by people voting. And I say on this platform all the time, I will never in my life tell anybody who to vote for, because one, I'm not smart enough to give you the information anyway. Two, the issues that are important to me are not the ones that are important to everybody else. But it's important that everybody has their say. And I
Absolutely.
always have a huge problem when people tell me, "Oh, it's not the president, so I'm not voting." Well, the president doesn't have jack snot to do with who's in your county courthouse and who's making those decisions. And you're seeing issues all over the state and other states where judges that making some questionable decisions. And if you look and see, there was not enough people voting to really have a fair idea of the will of the people. So I always say, people like Medgar Evers in Mississippi were murdered for everybody to have the right to vote. So you need to
Mhm.
exercise it. Never take an election off. So, I don't have anybody in here with me old enough to vote yet, but as they get to that age, why do they always need to exercise that right?
Mhm. Absolutely. The importance of knowing your history, knowing that this is a right that people have fought, put their lives on the line, died for you to participate in, that is enough in and of itself. The history. But aside from the history, the things that we are experiencing in the present day locally, that is what those elections are most important for. The issues that you experience the most. Of course, we have national level. Of course, all of that. Of course, the president is important. Absolutely. But when it comes to what affects you in your day to day life, your family's day to day life, you need to have a say in that. And it's our job and duty, as you said, not to just look for people to say, hey, vote for this person, vote for that person, but for you to actually do your research and know what is important to you, know what is affecting you, and be able to do something about it. I never believe the notion of my vote doesn't count. There is power in people. There is power in numbers. If everyone felt like their vote counted and went out and voted, who's to say what can be done? So I don't want
Absolutely.
anyone in your class, in any of the classrooms, to ever feel, because that is a huge misconception. My vote doesn't count. Your vote counts, and you have a voice.
Big time.
Use it and encourage your friend to use it as well.
Big time. Well, the last thing I want to talk about before we go, and like we mentioned earlier, unfortunately, Pike County had some horrible headlines lately when it comes to violence with young men. Several homicides, other violent things. And, I think I speak for a lot of teachers in the fact that I've lost too many students to incarceration, to homicide, I mean, unfortunately, I know a few that are in the ground right now. And most of the time, there's things that could have been prevented. And we see a lot of stuff on TikTok glorifying certain lifestyles. We see things on social media making young people think that taking a certain path is cool or fun or glamorous. But we need more positive black men in our community. And I've only got one young lady in here with me today, so I've got mainly young men in here with me. So as these young people are starting to decide their futures through high school, whatever they want to do after that, why do they need to understand and know that we need as many positive black men in our communities as possible?
It's important because people are watching you. The younger generation is watching. Even the high school kids, the elementary kids, they're watching you. So, how you carry yourself, what you decide to do, it impacts and affects not only you, but the other generations. It is important to get a positive role model. People like to say, oh, well, I was exposed to this, I was exposed to that. Choose what you decide to follow. It is somebody somewhere around you. You have a teacher right now that goes out of his way to bring you different types of exposure. Find someone that you can trust. Find someone that is on the right path because your future self will appreciate it. And I hear a lot of times people they go down the wrong paths because they feel it is easy. They feel it is the only way. But it is not. It is it is not the easiest thing. As you have said, I have seen both sides. I've had parents coming to me crying in a courtroom asking for a lower bond. And I cannot stress enough that the time when you are in the courtroom, it is actually too late.
Oh
When
yeah,
you need help, it is before that. It is now when you need to go seek out the help that I am talking about. Because once you make your decisions, once you make the wrong decision, once you go down the wrong path, it's harder for somebody to intervene. But if you get in the right crowd, if you follow the right crowd, you stay on the right path, it may take you 4 years of college, but at least you won't have to look over your back for the rest of your life. When I went to law school, I had people around me that they had went to college and they got a job and they were already working. I couldn't do this. I couldn't do that. I couldn't afford it. I was still in school. It took me extra time because I had a goal in mind. So that may be you. Some of your friends may say, well, I'm not going to college. I don't have time for that. I need to start working right now. If you decide to chase your dream, if you decide to chase something that is positive and legal, I guarantee you, years down the line, however many years, if you decide to take a trade for 2 years, undergrad for 4 years, a higher education, whatever amount of years it takes for you to do that, your future, the fact that you won't have to live paycheck to paycheck, the fact that you won't have to steal from people because you can't afford it yourself is worth whatever time that is that you need to do these things.
absolutely.
So it's really important. I can't stress it enough. I know you can't stress it enough, but it is just important to get a positive role model. It may not always be your parents. It may not always be your uncle, but find a teacher, find a principal, find a pastor, find somebody that can help you get on the right path. Because again, we sometimes choose to look at the wrong person. but it is somebody somewhere that can show you and help you and lead and guide you in the right path.
Love it. Well, couldn't have found a better way to end it. And we thank you so much for taking some time for us. I know you got a crazy schedule and just all the great work you're doing down there in South Mississippi. But the history maker herself, the Honorable Shequeena McKenzie, City Judge for Macomb and Magnolia, Mississippi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed, and I hope that it's something that somebody can use and take today in their future.
Love it. Talk to you soon, my friend.
Thank